What up, brothers and sisters? Brother G, World 7_D, back at it again. I'm going back to this book, Queen Califia, and the island of California she ruled in paradise into the great floods of the early 1800s. Now, I'm going to make a quick point. This is not going to be a long video, but I'm going to make a quick point because I always talk about ships and everything, but I'm going to show you a few things real quick. Now, I've shown you this picture before. Let me home in it. Shows you Sir Francis Drake with a bunch of California Indians going back to 1579. So you hear these Negroes all talking about 1619, 1619, 1619. We brought here slaves, 1619. Stop listening to them ignorant Negroes. Stop listening to Pan-Africans. Most black people are already over here. I've always emphasized that. But I want to read this little bit of this because I think I read this before, but I want to explain something real quick. The inspiration for the word was likely caliph, talking about the word California, or califia, which means successor in Arabic, but more specifically refers in Islam to a head of state or leader of Muslims. Montalvo was surely familiar with these words. Portions of Spain were ruled by Moors, Tartarians, who were Muslims from 757 to 1492. And it fits the story narrative. Montalvo's novel was a fanciful rehash of the struggle between Christians and Muslims during the Crusades, which happens here in America. Polk chronicles the extremely slow progress of explorations along the California coast for the next 2 centuries in her book, The Island of California. She relates how Cortez mapped only the lower portion of the Gulf of California. Alarcon sailed up the Gulf of Colorado River in 1540 and rode up the river a long way but left no map. The explorer Onate reached the mouth of Colorado at the head of the Gulf in 1604, over a century after Columbus' voyage. In the late 1500s, Spanish trade ships followed ocean currents from the far east to the east of Mendocino, where they turned south to Baja. All right, I'm going to stop with that one. I'm going to go. I'm going to mention this right quick. Now, I showed you those California Indians. I showed that in the prior video. You had numerous of different types of black people, Indians, throughout the Americas, but even in California itself. Now, Queen Califia, I mentioned about her before, a matriarch ruler ruling over an Indian warrior group, a la Wonder Woman. But what I also mentioned before is that if you study, you get a map of California and you see the name Malibu, all right, and then you get a map of Mexico. If you can see it, it's the city of Mexico, and the city in Mexico is called Malinalco. And then over Mali, you get Malicoma, which is a village in Mali. But Malinalco is in Mexico, and it's a little bit south of Mexico City. You know, Mexico City is built on top of an older, ancient black empire. But Malinalco is, like I said, is a city in Mexico City, knows the name Mali. And Malinche means Mali Nali. She's a Mandingo, all right? And then when you look at over in Arizona and Nevada, you get those cliff carvings that were carved into. And I showed it in prior videos. You can go look at my older videos. That are cut into rock. You see the exact same thing with the ancient ones. You see the exact same things over in Mali. All right. And you have the Mandan over in Florida. So, and then they'll tell you that these goofy white scholars and some of these Negroes, these Boule Negroes who are worse, they'll tell you that during the gold rush period that Malibu was named after a former slave. So everything had to be, quote, Africanized and then into slavery. That's what these bastards have done. So you had the Malinian Moors, the, quote, Aztecs, nothing but Negroes who had a large empire. So like I said, you had various different black groups that were here in the Americas. It wasn't just one type. So you gotta get that out of your mind that you were brought here with slaves, which you have the blood of the various different black groups that were already here. Not from no damn Africa. I'm going to go to page 92. This is the main thing I want to focus on in this book. There's so many things that's in this book. I've already knew. But I'm going to read this part right here. I'm going to focus on right here. American pyramids. The fire within. You see the ultrasonic images of pyramids that are now buried deep underwater, which I explained before. David Imhotep has this in book 2. In his book too, The African Presence or the African Origins of America. I forgot the name of the book, sorry. There are more than 1,000 pyramids in Central America alone. There are 300 pyramids in China and over 200 pyramids in Sudan. The world famous pyramids located in Egypt total around 120 pyramids. According to Wikipedia, there are 118 pyramids. There are 18 famous Mayan archaeological sites in Yucatan, and each of them has pyramids in number of 3 to 20. I've shown you that before. It means that an average number of pyramids of the Yucatan is 230 to 250. To know exactly to the total number of pyramids of all of Mexico is unknown today, even with advanced topographical equipment of today. Maybe they don't want us to know how many. Mayan pyramids soaring above the surrounding jungles, such as the 65-meter high temple of 4 at Tikal, are amongst the most famous images from ancient Americas. Pyramids were built not as tombs to their kings, but as spiritual ascension chambers. Legend has it that Napoleon Bonaparte spent a night in the king's chambers of the Great Giza Pyramid of Egypt. In Egypt, he was a Negro himself. When he emerged from the room the next morning, his facial expressions was changed, traumatized and ghostly, so the story goes. Upon seeing his altered image, an assistant asked if he had seen something terrifying inside, but Napoleon refused to give any related comment and stressed that it should not be mentioned again. Years later, when Napoleon was on his deathbed, a close friend asked him about the experience he had when he was inside the king's chamber. Napoleon was about to say it, but changed his mind at the last minute. He just shook his head and said, "No, it doesn't help. You will never believe me." The ancient ones built the pyramids in alignment with the luminaries, now called planets above. The reason was so harnessed the knowledge and power of heavens. They would spend 3 days inside the chambers and were said to gain total self, big S consciousness. The knowledge gained was no doubt profound, and is a big reason we see such incredible buildings and structures that even today, with our modern engineers, computers, and supposed advanced technology, have no clue how they did it. At the ascension, the masters had harnessed mind over matter and could literally sing into creation whatever they wished. This is how tons of stones were moved hundreds of miles, and precise sacred geometry was used in design and build out. Pyramids were also periodically enlarged so that the interiors were excavated, sometimes reveal a series of complete but diminishing pyramids, often still with their original color stuccoed decoration. In addition, individual shrines could be amalgamated into a single giant complex over time as Mayan rulers attempted to impress their subjects and leave a lasting mark of their reign. A good example of this development can be seen at the North Acropolis at Tikal. Now, I showed you, like before, the underwater pyramids. So they built pyramid structures all over, and they used boats to travel the sea. Remember, they used boats to travel the sea. Like I said, I showed you the image from 1529, whatever, way before 1619, of Negroes in California, of the numerous Negro tribes now in California. The state was named after Queen Califia, a fictional goddess. All right. You have Malibu over there. You have the carvings of the ancient ones into rock. You also have that Mali, but you also have Malinalco in Mexico, a city in Mexico that is southwest of Mexico City, which Mexico City is built on top, like I said, of an ancient empire. When are some of you Negroes going to stop with this? We are brought here as African slaves when there's so much proof. When you see image of Montezuma and he looks like a damn wearing his Moors garb, and in the back of him, a city structure that looked like modern day Pentagon. The modern day Pentagon looks like the ancient Aztec structure that you're seeing behind Montezuma. There's no excuse not knowing this, but when you hear these so-called educated Negroes at these HBCUs or attend these Ivy League schools or these other universities being taught by Negro professors or these white so-called professors, scholars, lying to them, saying that they did not come here till 1619 is insulting. But this continues to go on. I mentioned about the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, how a lot of those Negroes were being expelled over there. We have to start using common sense and stop listening to anyone who's preaching you to Pan-Africanism, saying we all come from Africa. It's a sellout, and like I said in my other videos, it's a straight up sandball. That's what they are. Because if you still telling us that America is the new world, which it isn't, that we all come from Africa as slaves, you are an enemy and a traitor and a coon to our community, period. You are a sellout. Because most of our people are already here. You had a lot of those Seminole black Indians going into Mexico. Well, a lot of those Negroes celebrate Juneteenth. You look at some of the Mexican names, they are describing the so-called Aboriginal black and slash Moorish presence. You have Islamic structures or more structures over Mexico. Wake the hell up. Stone structures all over the damn planet. And you got Negroes still telling you that you come from West Africa. That you was brought over here on a damn boat. No, you weren't brought over here on a boat. You built great civilizations here, and you took that knowledge in a boat and traveled the damn planet. And you align different structures to the alignment of the stars. That's how great our ancestors were, man. So stop with this mess about you come from Africa. This got to stop. Because so-called Africa was here in America. Like I said, in Ethiopia, that name Ethiopia was used here in America on maps. Lower Ethiopia was the northern part, which is now where we are in the United States, and Upper Ethiopia was in South America. And Wakanda was here in America. Not no damn make-believe place in Africa. Wakanda was actually here in America, as well as you can say Mecca and all that stuff was here in the Americas. All that stuff was here in the Americas. But you still got Negroes who want to attack Tariq Nasheed, do videos about 4 or 5 minutes, 4 or 5 hours, talking about FBAs and Tariq Nasheed. Negro look like Miss Piggy and sound like Isaac Hayes, running their mouths. All they want to do is say that we come from African slaves, don't know what the hell they talking about because they haven't done no real research. So brothers and sisters, we need to do the real research. I know many brothers and sisters know what I'm talking about, who have done this, who have studied this, and they're just trying to refine their information. We all do that. We all don't know everything. Learning is a forever life process. So, but a lot of us have to be reprogrammed for the garbage that we have been programmed to believe in. So we have to reprogram ourselves from that lie. Peace and love, brothers and sisters. Your brother Chief World 7_D.